A tragedy truly has taken place in Bengaluru. A 23-year-old woman, Soundarya, was electrocuted to death this morning. That's not all, unfortunately. Soundarya was walking with her 9-month-old toddler, Suviksha, when this happened. So Suvarna Soundarya stepped on a live wire and she had a little toddler with her in her arms, and both of them were electrocuted and charred to death. The mother-daughter duo were residents of the AKG colony, which comes under the Kaddugogi police limits. They were electrocuted, imagine, while walking near Hope Farm Junction in Whitefield, while on the way to visit Soundarya's mother and Suviksha's grandmother. While walking on the footpath, Soundarya, like I said, stepped onto a live wire which had fallen on the road, and both of them just lost their lives. They were instantly electrocuted and they were charred to death. A mom and her 9-month-old daughter. Her husband, as per reports, did try to intervene. He was there with her. They were just returning from their Diwali celebrations with their families back to Karnataka, back to Bengaluru. So the husband was with her. He tried to save her, but he also got a shock in the process and just, he just couldn't do much. He just couldn't do anything. That photograph that you see on your screen of Soundarya and her daughter, they were absolutely fine till last night. For all we know, they were absolutely healthy people. She was a healthy mother with a healthy kid. They were just coming back home and they're no longer alive because of negligence and apathy. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that civilian lives, that lives of people like you and I, have been lost in this sort of a manner. Problems regarding civic infrastructure, be it potholes, the flooded streets, under construction pillars, and now even live wires, they've gone unattended for far too long. If you remember, viewers, just a few months back in August this year, a 60-year-old woman died in Bengaluru while avoiding potholes in Magadi Main Road. Those are the visuals on your screens, 18th August 2023. Then a speeding school bus behind her scooter was reportedly simultaneously trying to overtake her and struck it, and the elderly woman fell, and I'm finding it difficult to even describe what happened because the bus went over her head, crushing her to death on the spot because she was trying to avoid a pothole and the bus driver didn't know what to do, and the woman just lost her life. Pothole menace has claimed lives of budding techies in India's Silicon Valley. A 23-year-old software engineer was killed after the MUV she was traveling in, remember? Okay, so we've shown you about live wires, we've spoken about potholes. Have a look at this on your screens. Okay, another young girl in Bengaluru, very well educated, working there. She's killed because her car got submerged in floods at the KR Circle underpass, and this is again from 23rd May 2013, just this year. Once again, this is what happens. Young person lost her life. Why? Nobody has an answer. This has occurred stone's throw away from the Vidhan Sabha, which is the Karnataka Legislative Assembly. Okay? Even earlier this year, a metro pillar collapsed and claimed the life of a young mother and her toddler. There you have it, 10th January 2023. The metro pillar just collapsed on a mother and her toddler. Even after 10 months, the family of this mother and daughter await justice. So imagine, what about the others? The only question that remains is, what do we do now? When the state is treating all of our lives without consequences, what really can be done? Can we then take a leaf out of perhaps the books of the great Mahatma and ask ourselves, what would Gandhi do? Remember, there was a time when people in this country, when fellow Indians in this country felt that those in power were mistreating them, that those in power were abusing them, that those in power did not care for them. And back then, what did Gandhi do? He espoused satyagraha, non-cooperation, civil disobedience, the Savoday. Do we now need to follow in his footsteps to address these issues? Joining me on the broadcast is Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, Dr. P.S.V. Rao. We also have with us Shekhar Vijayan. Let me begin with Dr. P.S.V. Rao, if I may. Dr. Rao, what do you suggest we do, sir? Because every few months we come here and we have these conversations, and I promise you that all of those instances that I've listed out right now, these were all things that we literally remember by memory because they've just happened, right? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, we just spoke about this. We just spoke about this civic apathy in our country, and once again someone's losing their lives to it. So what do you think needs to be done, sir? Should we then, how do we resist this state that we're forced to be in a manner that will actually make the governments wake up?
Devika, I am deeply saddened as a citizen, as a surgeon, and to some quite an extent as a voter also. I think we see, as a surgeon, we are struggling. I have spent 45 years in the Department of Surgery trying to save lives, trying to save limbs, and this kind of apathy and this kind of apathy towards the welfare of the people, their safety, it deeply hurts us. And as a citizen also, I feel bad. And as a voter also, I feel bad because very often during elections, it is not these issues which seem to be discussed. The issues which are discussed are what is convenient for the politician rather than what matters for the public. And it is about high time. You are talking about Gandhiji's civil disobedience and non-cooperation. Yes, that will work to some extent. But now we are a free India. We aren't under the British rule.
Yes.
And we need to make every vote count. I'll tell you what the problem in Bengaluru is. You have not checked the voting percentage in Bangalore. You should have checked that also. It is one of the lowest in all the cities in India. Bangalore has got a huge young population. Most of them are immigrants from various parts of India. And they, when the election time comes, I'm sad to say that many of them have not even registered as voters here in Bangalore, and they are holidaying. This time, the election commission did something very unusual. It put the election on the mid-week and gave the reason that you Bangaloreans disappear on election day, take a holiday instead of voting. That's why we have been forced to put the election on the middle of the week. It didn't make a huge difference. If we want these politicians to listen to our problems, the potholes, the badly designed roads which lead to flooding in those places, the fact that a live wire can be broken and it doesn't automatically trip, this is all very sad. See, you take my home. I am on solar electricity for the last 8 years, so I am not affected by the the electricity board's shenanigans. But even here, the MCBs will, any MCB will trip if there is an overload, and the safe trip will trip if there is any shortage, leakage of the current. Now, I can't understand even why the statement here by the BESCOM board is that this happened on Saturday. Now, if this happened on Saturday, how come it was still live at 6 a.m. in the morning today? it should have, their safety mechanism should have tripped immediately. And very unusual that a wire has, a live wire has fallen on a Saturday when there was no storm, no tree fall. Usually these things happen when when there is a storm and there is a tree fall, it brings the wire cables above. And till recently, these people were busy converting all overhead wires into underground wires, so that into bundled insulated wires, so that
Yes.
you won't have because the other problem was many places overhead electric wires were very close to the balcony, and many people have got electrocuted by just being in the balcony and reaching out to that. So, like in my area, they have 2 years back replaced all overhead wires with insulated wires and all together jumbled together, so that even if there's a branch of a tree falling on it, the wire won't come down. And in many areas they have gone for underground wiring, and because of court insistence, many of the transformers which were on footpaths have now been put up on pillars, so that people can, otherwise walking on the footpath you have a sudden transformer right in the middle of the footpath. Now all these things have been changing, but they have been changing very slow, and I can't understand why the automatic safety mechanisms didn't work in this particular case.
Yes.
Now as far as the flooding case was concerned, they were warned actually that don't get into that path because it is known to get flooded when there is rain. But then why that is faulty design? If you have a underpass which keeps getting flooded every time there is rain, it shows that there is poor drainage and your design was poor, where some of these things are lower than the stormwater drains in that locality, or you have blocked the natural drainage pipelines. And as far as potholes are concerned, less said the better, because Bangalore has got a lot of trees, and many of these places the rainwater gets focused on certain parts of the road. And if you have these heavy overloaded trucks and vehicles going, the tar there breaks down. Of course, they have been trying to concrete the main roads. Many of the roads have been concreted, but the tar roads, if you have rain falling in specific areas, in these tree-lined roads you can see, those specific areas is where the potholes develop.
Yes.
And the other problem is, in India, we don't have these multi-axle trucks. We have only these 2-axle trucks. And these trucks are overloaded. There is no one checking on the overload. So when these go over wet roads, the tar breaks down and you soon have a pothole. Of course, there is also shoddy quality of road laying, where the support underneath the tar.
There's
is
a
not good enough.
100% shoddy
Yes.
quality, Dr. Rao, and
Yes.
you know that matter of construction, poor construction, is not just limited to Bangalore. I can tell you in Delhi there was an underpass that was made very close to my house, connecting two prominent areas of Delhi, Chanakyapuri to South Campus. Within 10 days of that underpass opening up, I can't even begin to explain what a horrible piece of infrastructure that is. Within 10 days, it started falling apart.
Yes, and you were talking about pillar which is collapsing. It shows poor quality of construction. You have bridges collapsing in India before they can even be inaugurated. So they had for years been talking that we will put up a board as to who is constructing this road, who is constructing this bridge. Now, but nothing of the sort has happened, so that you can put liability on them. Now, the contractors here say that the government takes so much of there is so much of corruption, and they take so much of commission that we hardly have enough money to make a good quality construction. This means that there is a total nexus between the contractors and the politicians, and corruption is like a cancer. It eats you from inside. It destroys the whole society, and this is where the other problem lies. And how are you going to catch anyone responsible when politicians are winning votes on the basis of caste, religion, etc.? Is this what you need to vote for, or do you vote for development and good quality infrastructure? Bangalore is one of the biggest sources of
Yes.
tax revenue. And where is that tax going? Same thing with Delhi. What
Exactly.
about Bombay?
Precisely.
Yes. These are all, there is enough revenue there. This revenue is going into corrupt pockets rather than being put to public good use.
Absolutely.
And there is no liability there. The courts are so full of cases that if you go and file a case, your grandchildren will be looking into that case.
I'm telling you that the family of the husband of the woman and the toddler on whom the construction pillar fell on, he did sue. He did sue the company, he did sue the government, and that case has been adjourned as usual. There's no development.
It will be his grandchildren or great grandchildren who will see the case.
Absolutely. Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, let me bring you into the conversation, sir, because what we're trying to do here today is to truly understand what is it that we must do now, because I do believe that somewhere we have to step up and just say enough is enough. No more of this. I'm sorry, but this just can't keep happening. These are absolutely healthy Indians who are just dying on the streets. What is it? What sort of a country? And it pains us to have this conversation because all day, every day, we're talking about India's rise, India the next superpower, India the next global power. There's so much work that's happening. There's such brilliant work that's happening in all sectors. Just yesterday, we've spoken about how we've crossed a $4 trillion mark. Our economy has. And today, we're back here to discussing how a woman and her child have just died because there were live wires on the road.
Devika, thank you for raising this important issue. For a young life of a woman and a little child, toddler, to be lost under these circumstances is very unfortunate. You have highlighted the issue very well, and so has Dr. Rao. Now, my comments are as follows. First of all, it is not a day and age when you can just let it happen and let it pass. You cannot have apathy towards such a situation. There has to be sort of responsibility has to be fixed. Reasons have to be found, what happened, why it happened, how it was allowed to continue. And then punishment has to be meted out in very exemplary sort of manner. It is almost like willful homicide for somebody to leave live wire on the street where people can be executed. So whoever is responsible has to be put behind bars, or more than that, some very serious punishment has to be given. His job has to be sort of taken away. And part of the reasons why all this is happening is the value of life in India, unfortunately, is not given due appreciation. Individuals are not really valued so much as
Ambassador
the Western world.
Ambassador Kapoor, sorry to interrupt you, and I'll allow you to complete. But let's be honest. It's not just value of individual life. It really matters whose life was it ultimately. Had this been someone, some celebrity, someone with money, someone with power, had this unfortunate tragedy, the worst of it, happened with them, there would be an uproar.
You're right, Devika. What I meant was common man's life, the common people's life. Then if you are fighting elections on the basis of offering freebies, where the whole system is going to go haywire in terms of all the costs associated and the long-term, deficits and problems which will arise. Now, if I look at it from the Western perspective, what has changed from Gandhi's times? Firstly, there's a lot of activism. There's a lot of advocacy. There is a lot of study of public policy. There is upstream and downstream understanding of these issues. Now, earlier, when we didn't have the internet, we didn't have the social media, these things were not prominently known or easily known or spread, or the information conveyed to others. In this day and age, for this thing to happen, the world gets to know in a matter of seconds, if not minutes. Now, with public policy, what happens is the power of the bureaucrats to just make decisions in isolation is not there anymore. The public policy people have to analyze, have to study that what are the policy decisions being taken, what are the implementations, what are the executions, and transparency is also required. like Dr. Rao's mentioned about corruption. So once put into place an understanding and people start to pause and reflect, and for such a thing to happen in Bangalore, which is the Silicon Valley of India, and that is another big shock, not just one, but so many incidents, one after the other. So the people of the city also have to become more active and have to protest both in the civil disobedience form and in more active forms by writing letters, by boycotting, by sort of putting sustained pressure on people who are responsible. So till there is action, till there is resolution, till there is a future vision as to how this will be prevented in the future. Once you arrive at that point and decide that the public policy issues are to be executed in this fashion, and every responsible person takes responsibility, at that stage will you have less of these incidents. Back to you, Devika.
Okay, Shekhar, let me bring you into the conversation here because Shekhar, you're a resident of Bangalore, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and like I said, okay, yes, these civic infrastructure problems, they're there across India, but literally in the past 1 year, the most of them that we've discussed and debated end up coming out of Bangalore, and we're just at a loss of words. Nobody can understand why this continues to happen in Bangalore and what really has gone wrong, because there comes a point where you have to stop with the conspiracy theories, because okay, if something else were to happen, people would say, oh, this is a foreign conspiracy in India trying to make India look bad. Who's trying to make India look bad here? Who's left? Are we saying someone from China came, cut up the wire, left a live wire open for someone in Bangalore to die? I mean, somewhere we have to wake up and say, okay, something is actually still terribly wrong with the people who are responsible for our daily lives.
Absolutely, Devika. And I was just listening to all my co-panelists speak, and I also believe this is very, very tragic. Such a young life being lost in such a manner. Now, this also reflects the apathy of the current administration or the current ruling government. The fact that, I am a resident of Bangalore, and I can tell you there is a particular flyover here in Koramangala which has been built for the last 20 years. In 20 years, people leave jobs, join jobs, have children, get grandchildren, they move on in life. But for 20 years, a flyover is being built, irrespective of which party is in power. Now, that's just one example. The second thing is, on your channel itself, we have spoken so much about potholes. We have spoken about the memes around potholes, where people have shown that the potholes are like the craters of the moon, but the government has done nothing. They've only been counting the potholes as and when election time comes in. The third thing is, the citizens of this country, of this beautiful cosmopolitan city like Bangalore, they have tried everything under the sun. You've tried, pressurizing the government. There have been letters which have been written, but somehow you feel there is a total lack of accountability, lack of responsibility, and a lack of love for human beings in terms of being sensitive to issues like this. Now, if you're talking about a live wire being lying vacant, or lying on a road like this, and nobody's even taking accountability, one shudders to think, what is human life all about? And like you said, at one point of time, we are talking about India being at the forefront of the world. India is a superpower, financial powerhouse. Bangalore's IT capital of the world. For everything you have an app here. Somehow our infrastructure is in shambles. Our infrastructure is in shambles. We have think tanks in place.
And Shekhar, you tell me honestly, who would want to come and stay in Bangalore? You tell me, who will leave their lives in America, Europe, or other places of the world, Korea, who's Japan, who's leaving all of these places to come and settle in Bangalore?
Yeah, so I think that's the entire problem here. I think as a society, we're getting so insulated with what is happening around us. Human life does not really matter, not just for us, but also for the politicians, also for the people around. I think somewhere we all need to start questioning, and we all need to start asking questions. And like you said right at the beginning of the program, you used the words of the great Mahatma Gandhi ji about civil disobedience and about non-violence and everything around it. I think it's very important for us to ask these questions, because unless they put under pressure, nothing really happens here. And once they put under pressure, yes, they do react and respond. But I think there's much more which needs to be done here. We need to do so much more work, and it's always a constant fighting which we're doing, which somewhere at the end of the day, which is not correct. We can't just keep fighting for something as simple or as basic as infrastructure, which is what a superpower is all about. Simple, basic infrastructure. If for that you're losing human lives, then I think, like they say, the country is going to dogs. I would not call it going to dogs, but I think the country is going to donkeys, I would say.
And Shekhar, is there then any possibility, like I said, okay, and Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor also said, okay, we're not in a pre-independent zone where we have to really go into the Gandhian modes, but just taking inspiration from what happened then. Is there something that we can do then in modern India? Is there some inspiration we can take? Because I'm sure sitting on a protest is not going to, it's really not going to make a difference to the political class of this country. Media pressure we've seen. Who cares about media pressure in this country?
See, Devika, this issue would not have arisen if it would have happened to somebody who's a millionaire, somebody who's a politician. This issue would not have happened. It's happening to the middle class, the low middle class. That's why it's getting affected, and the fourth pillar of democracy, which is you was talking about it. Now, what we've also seen is this is a one-off issue. Infrastructure has been a bane for India for a very, very, very long time. But look at the other, wheels which are in motion. Everything else is moving perfectly. So somewhere we all have to collaborate. Somewhere we all have to question and keep questioning, and put enough pressure on our elected representatives about asking what their manifesto is, whether they're working as per the manifesto. Yes, we have to go back to the time, and I think that's the only way out, because social media is also very, very active. We have seen social media, if it's used effectively, can bring about change. I think it's also important for us to fight for it, talk about it, write about it, speak about it, and let people know that every human life is important. You cannot just get away with it, and so like I mentioned right at the beginning of this, the small girl who passed away, the 9-month-old girl, or and the mother. It cannot be so simple. It cannot just be so tragic. It cannot be so cruel that you allow this to happen and nobody takes responsibility for it. Suddenly people are on probation mode. Suddenly the person who's supposed to take responsibility is missing in action. This is more than just conspiracy theories. This is just pure inaction by the government, and it also boils down to the fact about all the free policies which are in place, or all about the things which they did to come to power. Now we are paying the brunt for it. Who bought into this idea of the freebies? It's the public. It's we at large. We voted for this government. We have to bear the brunt for it, and that's what the elected representatives will do. Because you're paying for it, you have to pay for it right now. And ultimately, it all boils down to that. Ultimately, we have to fight for it. Ultimately, we have to start questioning. And I think the right minds have to collaborate and think about how can we win this together. It's been done in the past. It's happened in the past. India has done this in the past. India can do this in the future too. We can always take inspiration from the past for making a brighter future for all of us. There's nothing wrong in doing that. But the point is, do we need to keep doing it again and again? Do we need to keep fighting for it again and again? Because we are at one point of time, we're talking about India being a financial powerhouse. The G20 summit went really well. The World Cup went really well. India has got potential in doing so many good things. But when you deep dive into a city like Bengaluru, which is the IT capital of the world, which is the shining light for IT across the world, you have shoddy infrastructure. Somewhere, I don't know, I think the media houses need to get involved, companies need to get involved to see whether this infrastructure is good enough or not for their employees to work in. When they put pressure on the elected representatives, automatically things come into play. We've seen that with the roads in Bangalore. When the roads in Bangalore were really bad, we had the IT companies actually putting pressure on the government, and then the think tank was created, and then suddenly overnight things have changed. So things have changed. Things have happened overnight. Only when you put pressure on the elected representatives, it actually happens. But for that, it has to be done in a more strategic manner. It has to be done in a more rigorous manner. It has to be done in a more persistent manner. And there needs to be a lot of passion in play here.
Okay. For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.